Hey all, this is Jay McAleese with Disc Golf Warehouse, the storehouse for disc golf content. This video is dedicated to the terms that are vital to understand disc golf and to become a better player. This is the foundation of information that every player needs to know. So the first term we're going to be talking about is backhand throw. This is when you bring the disc when your hip is facing the basket across your body and through, as you can see in the video right here. A forehand throw is thrown from near your hip, but it's more of a flick of the wrist. It's often known as the sidearm or the flick, and this is a good example of it. And the big difference between these two are that the backhand for a right-hand backhand player will go to the left, and a forehand will go to the right. An overhand throw is pretty much exactly what you think it is. My brother's going to give you a good example of this. He's just taking the disc, throwing it overhand. The way he has it gripped right there, he has his thumb on the rim, so it's going to fall to the right. But if you held it as you would for a forehand, it would fall to the left. Here's another example of the overhand shot. This is called a thumber if your thumb is on the rim. It's called a tomahawk if your two fingers are on the rim. And then there is an example of what I'm talking about. Next we have the hyzer throw. This is where you have, for a right-handed backhand player, you have the wing of the disc facing down as you pull through. And so it's the natural direction the disc wants to fly when you're throwing a backhand, as I said, is to the left. So it's going to pull to the left even more because you're forcing in that direction. And you can do the same thing for a forehand. You just face the tip of that wing down, and it's going to go pretty much immediately to the right if you're throwing a forehand. In anhyzer, you're forcing the disc to go in the opposite direction that it wants to fly. So in this shot, I'm pulling the disc over to the right, knowing that in a backhand shot, it's going to want to go left. That will make it go straighter, longer. And then there's three terms I want to talk about. It's really important to understanding disc golf. The first one is overstable, and this is an example of that. An overstable disc is going to want to get over in the direction of its intended flight quicker. And here we have an example of a pretty stable disc. It is a putter, and I'm throwing it on a slight ante, just because it's on the overstable side of stable, but a stable disc is going to want to go straight for a very long time, and then of course will fall out the direction of its intended path. So for a backhand, it's eventually going to come to the left, and for a forehand, it's eventually going to go to the right. And I don't throw a lot of understable discs just because I throw a lot of forehand. So if I need a disc to go to the right, I'll throw a forehand. If I need a disc to go to the left, I'll throw a backhand. But as you can see, I threw this disc on a slight hyzer, and it flipped to flat and even rode a little bit to the right before coming back out to the left at the very end of its flight. So as I talked about a little bit earlier, this is the backhand disc direction. If you're throwing a flat backhand with a stable to overstable disc, backhand, it's going to want to go to the left. And then for forehand, if you're throwing a relatively stable disc or overstable disc, it's going to want to go over to the right. If you're doing this with an understable disc, it can get a little bit more unpredictable. You could throw a forehand with an understable disc and get it to go left, or backhand with an understable disc and get it to turn to the right, but that's a little bit harder to do and it's a little bit more unpredictable. And those are some of the key terms and terminology that really is the foundation for every disc golfer. Understanding this will ultimately improve your game.